We have some new video of what really is a shocking shootout between two children and sheriff's deputies in Central Florida. A warning, of course, you may and likely will find this video quite disturbing. You can see in the video the gut-wrenching moments when deputies say the 14-year-old girl and 12-year-old boy opened fire on them. The young girl was eventually shot and is still in the hospital.
They look like they're going to try to come
this
out
morning. CNN's Leyla Santiago is live in Florida with more. Leyla, can you walk us through this?
Yeah, Kate, this is a 9-minute video. It's a compilation of clips from 8 different deputies released by the Sheriff's Department here. And it walks us through what it was like from the deputies' perspective, from having to hide behind a tree when they were fired upon to their attempts to de-escalate the situation.
I have to hold my cover. Stand by.
This police body camera footage shows a disturbing scene in Central Florida Tuesday night.
Juvenile male looks like he has something in his hand as well. They're at the back sliding glass door on my side, which would be facing the 3. Shooting out the rear window toward my direction. Stand by.
The Volusia County Sheriff releasing an edited compilation of the standoff he says started after a 14-year-old girl and a 12-year-old boy ran away from a children's group home.
And the call was that a 12-year-old who is a diabetic and needs medication every 4 hours or so had walked off campus with the 14-year-old.
According to the sheriff, the teens broke into this house and allegedly used an AK-47 and shotgun discovered inside to open fire on officers.
Female has a shotgun in her hand. Stand by. Put the guns down now!
Deputies working to de-escalate the situation.
I'm not sure if they're going to come to the front door or not. Stand by. Don't make me do this. Don't do this. They look like they're going to try to come out, and I will challenge. Show your hands now!
But after about 35 minutes, police say the teenage girl who was armed with a gun threatened to kill a deputy.
Stand by. Shots fired at me again. Juvenile male fired that round.
Yeah, bring him up here.
Okay. Stand by. She's got the AK and the shotgun. She's wrapping it around the top of her neck. Shots fired! God damn it. Shots fired again. Female now has a pistol. Juvenile male has a long gun, so does the female. Stand by.
The teenage girl was reportedly shot multiple times by deputies and was in critical but stable condition, and the boy taken into custody uninjured, speaking to authorities about the situation.
And then when we question him, when it's all over, he tells investigators that the female made a statement that I'm going to roll this down like GTA. Grand Theft Auto, and then that she started firing multiple times at deputies who were outside of the residence. They knew it was law enforcement, he said, and they were shooting to cause harm to law enforcement.
No deputies were hurt in the incident, and an investigation is now underway.
But nobody comes to work to shoot and kill anybody. We certainly don't come to work to get into gunfights with 12 and 14-year-olds.
According to the arrest affidavit, both are facing several charges, including attempted murder on a law enforcement officer. You know, the sheriff, as you heard, he is passionate and he is very critical of the juvenile justice system. We spoke to the shelter where these children live, where we are right now, and they said that they feel overwhelmed and that the system is failing children.
Yeah. Leyla, thank you very much for that. Joining me right now is CNN senior law enforcement analyst, Chief Charles Ramsey. Chief, what is your reaction to this body cam video and what we're hearing about how it played out?
Well, I mean, it's terribly sad. A 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, I mean, you know, they break in a house, they get guns, and they knowingly shoot at police that are responding. I mean, I think the police did a good job. Please don't get me wrong. The failure isn't on their part. But when you look at the system, the juvenile justice system, I mean, they're in a group home. Clearly, we know now they probably should have been in a more secure facility. But, you know, they weren't. They were able to walk away. I don't know about their parents and what role they play, but certainly there's breakdowns there in both the family as well as the juvenile justice system that led to all this.
Let me play a little bit of what the sheriff actually said about all of this to my colleague Allison Camerati yesterday.
All I was going through my mind is, what are these deputies thinking that they have to return fire on a 12 and a 14-year-old? You know, their moms and dads. I know some of them, their kids are that same age. And, you know, well, thank God nobody was killed. I don't know what the residual effects are going to be on some of these deputies.
Yeah, I mean, and you know this, Sheriff, Chief. What do you think of that?
I know him. Well, first of all, I know Chit Wood very, very well. He's from Philly originally, an excellent police chief. But he's absolutely right. People don't think about the trauma that police officers undergo in these situations. I mean, here you got a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. Now imagine you've got a 12-year-old or 11-year-old and maybe a 15-year-old or so at home. I mean, do you really want to shoot that kid? But you may have to. And so those are the kinds of things that police officers can be confronted with. It's just not a good situation for anybody that's concerned with this.
Yeah, the system for sure failing. That definitely exposed here. Hearing that officer just say, like, don't make me do this is just gut-wrenching.
We're all at a loss for words. I mean, the deputies out there, their moms and dads, they have kids the same exact age. But I have to tell you, from our perspective, we get this thing called restorative justice thrown down our throats. Restorative justice is great for kids who are round pegs that you could fit into round holes. But how about the kids that are violent and suffer from different mental disorders? You can't put them in that round hole. They need to be in a secure facility, and some of them, and they need to be under constant supervision and getting constant treatment. What we're learning about the 12-year-old, that one of his foster parents had called and said that when he was placed there by the Department of Children and Families, nobody told her about his violent tendencies and how uncontrollable he was. And as a foster mom said, I couldn't take care of him because I think that the system lied to me. This is a kid that needs intense help. He needs intense counseling. He needs intense supervision. And clearly the system isn't doing that.
A failure, Sheriff. It's Jim Shootout here. How did these children, again emphasizing children, manage to get that weapons cache? I mean, including an AK-47, literally a weapon of war. How did they manage to get their hands on them?
Yeah, let's back up and I'll tell you how it starts. It starts at 5 p.m. when the 12-year-old and the 14-year-old walk off of the non-secure juvenile home that they're living in. The 12-year-old suffers from diabetes and he needs his insulin every 4 hours. So when we get the call to runaways, that obviously in the call is, hey, this kid at any moment could have a medical emergency. So that's the auspice that starts us. The deputies are out trying to locate a 12-year-old and get him back to a safe house before he has a medical episode. Around 7, a couple of times we spot them, they run from us, and around 7:30, there's a real popular bike trail that runs behind that home. We get alerted to a young juvenile male, a young juvenile female just smashed glass and entered into a residence. And they come in, and when they ransack the residence, they recover the firearms that the homeowner has locked away inside of his home. The homeowner tells us the AK-47 was disassembled. So we really want to know how they learned how to assemble the AK-47.
Jesus.
Wow. What would you do, Sheriff? You talk about rehabilitation programs. We heard your emphatic plea in the Tuesday night press conference. As someone who has had so much experience in policing but has never seen something like this before, can I ask what you would recommend for the rehabilitation of kids, like proposals for fixing a system that you say is broken?
Absolutely. The model has to be turned upside down on its head. The bureaucracy needs to be blown up. There are good men and women that work in the Department of Juvenile Justice. There are professional people that work at the Department of Children and Families. But they're the ground level workers. They're the ones that have the solution. They see these kids. They know what programs work and what programs don't work.
They did tell us, Sheriff, sorry to interrupt, but they did tell us this morning, Department of Juvenile Justice, this was not one of their programs, not one of their homes. But continue.
Well, they're not telling you the truth, because what they do is they score every juvenile that comes in contact with us. And then they decide whether they're going to place them in secure custody or not. The female set 6 lots on fire, almost burned houses to the ground. She was arrested for arson. According to the Department of Juvenile Justice, that doesn't score out as a serious felony, a serious crime. So they're putting these kids that are extremely violent into these low-level homes, and that's where the issue becomes.